Welcome to this episode of Unraveling Adoption, an intentional space to delve into adoption's complexities together. I'm Beth Syverson. I'm an adoptive mom of a brilliant and resilient 21-year-old son, Joey, who is on his own healing path. I'm walking beside him while working on my own personal growth and healing. Joey and I are committed to helping anyone impacted by adoption, and we want to help the general public understand adoption's complexities better too. I'm also a certified coach helping seekers who want to move their lives forward. For today's very special episode, I wanted to bring in Mee Ok Icaro again. She's been a guest twice, once in episode 20 where she told about her adoption story and her healing through plant medicine, and once in episode 152 where she joined me and birth mom Leslie Pate McKinnon to talk about plant medicine's insights for the whole adoption constellation. She's also been on a few panels I've hosted about plant medicine in the adoption space, and she facilitates our approximately monthly medicine circles for those who want to integrate their insights after experiencing plant medicine. We are recording this episode just a few days before we join each other in Costa Rica for a retreat she's hosting at Soltara. I will be attending my first ayahuasca retreat, and she will be facilitating a group of us from around the world to have what we all hope will be a transformative healing experience. We thought we'd hop on to record a before and then later an after. We've both been on a rigorous dieta or set of restrictions in preparation for the plant medicine, so we thought we'd talk about this process of going into something brand new for both of us. Stay tuned for the post-retreat update, which will come out in about a month. And I realize that this extra long, extra special episode might not be everyone's cup of tea. If this is not for you, please go find another episode that might resonate more deeply. And next week, we'll go back to our regular programming. Let me start by saying that when I interviewed you, remember it took me a few tries to get you to even do an interview or to even talk to me, which is fine. It's fine, totally understandable. I wouldn't talk to me either. I get it. But when I did sit down and talk to you, this was so far not on my plane of existence. I had no idea. I thought I was just talking to a really interesting person who's done really interesting things and who's experienced amazing healing. And I was just here for it. But now here I am going on an ayahuasca ceremony journey myself in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I am very excited. Mostly excited, a little scared. Excited and scared. That's a little how I feel. Like I'm very excited. I wish it was tomorrow and not 5 days from now. I want to go now, but I'm very excited and just a little scared. I'm not super scared. I'm less and less scared as it gets closer. But, this is super not my comfort zone. This is not what Beth typically does.
Sure. It's certainly not the norm.
Yeah.
Most people have not drank ayahuasca and certainly not done it in the way that we're doing it.
Yes. And this is going to be not your first time using ayahuasca or drinking ayahuasca. That's a better way to say it, isn't it? But your first time leading a retreat. So how is that going for you?
It's interesting. What I'm finding is that there's this other level. The plants, they're so intelligent. And so they just meet you where you are. So when you're going into a retreat, like the way that we've been sort of supporting you guys, it's about focusing on yourself, not moving out and, this person and that person. It's like, no, back to you, back to you, back to you.
Yes. You've had to remind me of that a few times.
It's really hard, especially if you were raised in an environment where you couldn't do that because it wasn't safe.
Yes. It's so natural for me to take care of other people. I was so excited because I created this plan because I won't be able to talk to Jan, my wife, for 9 days. And we talk every single day and we've never been apart for more than like 2 or 3 days for some conference or something. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make a journal and I'll write to her every night instead of talking to her. And you're like, can I make a suggestion? I'm like, dang it. Whenever Mee Ok says, can I make a suggestion? That usually means taking something away. But I get it. I'm not supposed to be thinking about how will Jan feel about what I just experienced. I'm supposed to be thinking about how I just experienced whatever I will be experiencing, right?
Yeah, we're really focusing on ourselves and learning how to rewire and repattern our conversations with ourselves. And that requires not only adjusting our language, but also changing our thought patterns, because that's what's driving us into anxiety and depression and all of those things. But what's so interesting is that going into this retreat and leading it, it's a strange thing because the plants are always turning everything upside down because our culture is upside down.
Okay.
And so the way we think about what a leader is super not what a leader is.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Well, for example, in a lot of indigenous tribes, if you say you want to lead the pack, it automatically disqualifies you.
Oh.
And yet, only if you do that in our culture can you run things.
Yeah. So if you stand up and say, I want to be a leader, like, you're not going to be a good leader if you speak up like that.
That's right.
Oh.
Because you want it. And so the way people get put into leadership positions is because everybody chooses you. And typically it's somebody who just isn't really interested, but everybody agrees on them.
Does that model work better than what we have?
Yeah, well, my friend Liz Winstead has a funny quote where she said the problem with all presidents is that they think, you know what's wrong with this country? I'm not in charge.
Yeah, right.
So there is a sort of self-interested, egotistical narcissism in that.
Yeah.
So I think there is something really beautiful about getting a really humble leader. And even in history, there was like a Roman emperor. Everyone liked him. He was very even. He was very smart. He ran his land well and all of that. And he got like pulled out. And he was like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. But we're at war. And I'm the only person that both sides are cool with or whatever. And so, okay, I'll do this. But then I'm going back to my house.
Okay.
So that's more of, I think, the archetype and personality type that you want for these things. Well, having said that, I did have this vision for this retreat.
Yeah.
But what's been really interesting about it is I've had to learn a lot about what I think a leader actually is. And what it's sort of come down to, initially it was a bit different. I was feeling a lot of anxiety and pressure. So then I had to work through that. Like suddenly it became real. And I was like, what did I just do? But then I realized, oh my God, I'm like surrounded by this team of perfectly capable of people to where if something happened to me and like Mee Ok had to be MIA for the whole thing, it would run fine. It would be fine. So I was really delighted, and I feel really grateful that people are coming who are coming. They trust me. But what I realized was that I don't have to have all the answers. I think of myself, God, I'm such a lesbian, but I think of myself as like kind of a point guard in basketball, where it's like, yeah, I just have to dribble the ball down the court. I also get to pass, and everybody brings their strengths. So it's kind of a little bit, maybe like you're a musician, more of like a composer a little bit. And so it took the pressure off, but also it kind of made me realize that, a leader has the least ego in the space, but also where they bear the complete brunt of responsibility. So it's like, I'm taking responsibility for this place, but I'm not a head honcho. There's checks and balances.
And it's your vision, though, that you've created, right? How closely were you able to stay with your vision when you created this?
Really close.
Yeah.
So I was able to accommodate pretty much all of it.
Yeah. So you bring that creative part and that visionary part, but you're leaving the ego part, which I'm sure is not the case at every one of these retreats. I bet a lot of these leaders think, I'll fix you all, or you guys need to come listen to me and you'll have a great retreat and I'll set you all straight. Do you see that energy a lot in this kind of space?
I do. And I also see a lot of lack of accountability. That seems to be the big thing, because if I were there and everyone working for the retreat were on my payroll, or I had some sort of authority over them, then who do you go to if you have a problem with me? Like HR in the ayahuasca world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was really important to me to have the power not be in any individual person, but in
Yeah.
like the relations.
That's really good. And speaking as a participant, I'm like seriously putting my life in your hands right now. When I go down in Soltara's hands, right? I don't know. I'm going to the jungle somewhere, and there's a lot of trust that has to be there, and there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Like I know that there's been a lot of in the psychedelic world, a lot of sexual impropriety, and people taking advantage of people that are not fully aware of what's going on, and I'm sure those kinds of things are in your mind while you're preparing for this and how to protect us. And I trust you with all of that. But I know that it's some serious business you have to navigate.
Yeah. And I also had to be really real about my own, where I am with my own healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm showing up as this perfectly healed, poster child of ayahuasca.
Yeah.
I'm also showing up as somebody who is healing. And so I've
Mm-hmm.
had to look at my weaknesses and vulnerabilities and the things that I
Mm-hmm.
really struggle with so that everyone is protected. I mean, that's been the thing at all the retreats that I've been to, for the most part, except for Saltara, is that the people who were leading it didn't protect the participants from them.
Oh, from themselves. Wow. Because they probably were blind to it or unaware
Yeah.
or
Yes.
sociopaths. I don't know.
No, I think it was just again, when you have power and everyone's working
Yeah.
for you, you're
Yeah.
surrounded by yes men.
Sure.
And so I really didn't want that. And so I really surrounded myself with people who I can hear the truth from,
Mm-hmm.
who will give me feedback
Uh-huh.
and can do so really compassionately and intelligently. And
Mm-hmm.
they're good messengers.
And
And
they're willing to do that. Like, what if they told you, Mee Ok, you're super off track right now? Like,
yeah,
would you be able to receive that? And
yeah. I mean, well, also, I think they would probably say more,
okay,
like
yeah,
some specifics, but I think they would deliver it in a way to where all of the shame that I felt
sure,
from having that message delivered to me would be all of mine.
okay,
It wouldn't be because they were shaming me,
mm,
because they were right and I can see it because they knew how to deliver that message compassionately.
mm. And so you've intentionally surrounded yourself with people and you've probably had explicit discussions with them about this. I'm going to guess about how to keep everybody safe.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is that, in terms of people trusting me, they also are trusting where I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Not like I just, Googled ayahuasca retreat and call them up. This
Yes,
is
yes.
that I've experienced 5 times now.
Mm,
I'm friends, really good friends with the operations, the COO, Melissa.
mm-hmm,
And I'm really good friends with the facilitators. They've supported me in my work.
mm-hmm,
And so I know that
mm-hmm,
it's like fine, like the retreat doesn't need me
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
for everybody to be safe and have a positive experience. But
mm-hmm,
Tanya and I do bring, again, like a very specific vision.
mm-hmm.
And it's also not something that's possible to do for a lot of retreat centers because
Mm.
they're seeing new people every week.
Oh,
All the preparation and everything that we've been doing, meeting with you, you can't do that if you have guests there.
yeah. Okay.
And then the people who are helping you in ceremonies, the people who are, doing processing and integration with you, they can't hop on Zoom. The morning we leave, a new group comes in. So that's how retreats work.
Oh,
And so
okay.
Anya and I are able to be outsiders and come in with a group that we've been preparing
Mm-hmm,
and sit with you in your ceremonies,
mm-hmm,
process your ceremonies with you,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
then meet with you after and
After.
plan.
Yes.
I think with the retreat business model, it's just not possible to do that.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing this without this preparation we've had. We've had 2 Zoom meetings with you and as many of the participants who came. And then I think we'll have 6 after. 6?
Yes.
6. Yeah. And so that's not typical. Is that what you're saying? That's not how it typically works when you just are on that revolving door, like new people in, new people in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But since you're just coming in for this 1 week as like a consultant, right? You're just coming in and then you're able to stay with us. Now, I don't know how to make that model sustainable like over and over again, but maybe there needs to be more.
It's just that, yeah, because it's not like Tanya and I are meeting with the next group right now. Like we are just doing this group. And then when this group is done, we will, figure out our next moves.
Maybe I'll ask you in a couple of weeks, but at this point, do you think you'll do another one?
We're just going to see. We're just going to see. We may. I mean, you and I are independent contractors. We're consulting in the coaching world, and I'm not a particularly business-minded person, so I'm not sure if it would be that. There definitely is sort of like people who say that your second marriage is like the good one. So, watching this retreat come together, there were certain things that definitely the next time I would do differently that I think would make it more successful in terms of like business. But I think it's something that I really love doing. And I'm really excited to see in the space how it all comes together. Integration goes, and just to see also Soltara's kind of response to what they witness that's different about our retreat, and even any ideas that they want to incorporate into their regular retreats would be,
that'll be interesting feedback, because I know they host them all year long, but are there different facilitators or different leaders that come in, or are you an anomaly?
Oh, I'm an anomaly doing this. Like, this is the first time they're doing something like this, and then I'm doing something like this.
Normally, they just lead it themselves.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Oh, I didn't realize how unusual this was.
Yeah, and it's a different itinerary, and it's more of a traditional ayahuasca retreat, but
more indigenous based.
Well, it's kind of it's more pure ayahuasca. We're working with the additional master plants, and we're going to be taking you a little bit deeper into culture. We're going to see if the healers want to take the floor and share more during our retreat, things like that. They may not. I mean, they're busy and working and all of that. But but just to kind of bring, and also, I mean, quite honestly, when you go to ayahuasca retreat centers, it's hard to find somebody who's BIPOC leading these things, because there's no ayahuasca scholarship to do this. I'm just super lucky to have been, funded by people in this process. And it didn't even occur to me that I had been sort of being groomed to do this until
So you never thought you'd be doing this either?
No, I'm a little slow. But yeah, so, if you are queer or BIPOC or both, it can be a little more difficult to find facilitators who, aren't, unless you talk about people from South America, people from South America. But if you do have facilitators, it's still the same thing. Like, you're basically, talking to the upper, crust, or people who, they went to university in North America or Europe or something.
Okay. And so, a lot of cis white men are doing the leading part, right? Male dominated or just white?
I'd say it's just mostly, white people and like the caste in South America that, would be like top caste people.
That can afford to go to university or whatever.
And afford to go to an ayahuasca retreat.
Yeah. It is not cheap. And it takes somebody, I'm taking off 10 days, plus kind of a day before and a day after to pull myself back together. And not everybody has that much time. to take off, not much less the money to get there, to fly there. And it's,
well, yeah, I mean, most people who own their homes at least in the States, right? They're white.
yeah.
And, if you're paying rent, it's too expensive to not be home,
Yes.
period,
Yeah.
much less take off work and all that kind of stuff. So I remember when sometimes I would get full scholarships to ayahuasca retreats, and it was like, I still can't afford to go because
Yeah. Cause you don't get paid when you're not working.
I wasn't
While
working.
you're,
I just,
oh, you weren't.
I just couldn't afford to leave my life because I didn't
Oh,
own my house. I
oh,
was on Section 8, so you can't have anybody house sit for you in
oh,
exchange for watching your
really?
pet. So I couldn't
Oh,
afford to have anybody wash so it was just all those things,
yes,
right?
yes, yes. Oh
And
gosh.
so, yeah, they're just all those considerations, for low income people to leave their lives and
Yeah.
think about people who have kids.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you see that rolling out? As I I assume and I hope that unless it gets totally effed up, that psychedelics will become more prevalent in the US as it becomes more legalized.
Mhm.
How is it going to be more equitable, and how are people from all strata going to be able to access it? What is your take on that?
It's not.
It's just not. Okay.
No. That's one reason that I'm talking about bringing this medicine more into the cultural paradigm that it's
Mm,
in rather than extraction and fitting it into our paradigm.
okay.
Because when you bring something beautiful and powerful into a sick culture
Hmm.
with a sick medical system,
Hmm.
like what do you do if the hospital's sick? Like the hospital
Yeah.
itself is sick. I mean, it's already in the works
Mm,
with, I won't name names. I don't do that publicly, but I do offer private coaching and things like that to keep people safe because
okay.
there's so much going on. There's so much abuse that doesn't get
Hmm.
reported. There's so
Hmm.
much that gets suppressed. I mean, in some ways, it's sort of becoming the same paradigm as the Catholic Church or
Mm.
you move the priests around, you move the underground therapists around, you do this,
Uh,
that, you threaten
yeah.
reporters, all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So,
that's ugly.
yeah,
Well,
so it's
even
kind of
the
hard.
way last spring, I got ketamine treatment through my health insurance. It's totally FDA approved. It's on the up and up and everything. And it really, really helped me. It helped me get off of antidepressants after a couple of decades. So I'm very grateful. But the way it was delivered was super not the right way.
Yeah, let's talk a
You know?
little bit more about your process because it's been quite a while since I've gone to my first ayahuasca retreat or drank ayahuasca for the
Yeah.
first time. And
Yeah.
you're still not there.
Yeah.
Uh, but the preparation, I'd love to hear more about your experience of that.
Well, a couple of years ago, I did an underground psilocybin, kind of a day long thing with a guide, but it was not as powerful as it could have been because I was on Wellbutrin, and he told me that it will probably be dulled because of the Wellbutrin, and it was. I still got quite a bit out of it. I have an underground episode about it. If anyone wants to hear it, just let me know. But I've been trying to get off the Wellbutrin for a long time, and every time I would try to get off it, I would start getting kind of passively suicidal, and I was like, "Well, I guess I just got to keep taking this because if I'm not on it, I get suicidal." So, but then I asked my psychiatrist, "Okay, what else have you got?" And he said, "Oh, we have ketamine. It's Spravato. It's a nasal spray, and it is like synthetic ketamine." And I'm like, "Okay, set me up, do it. I'm going to do it." And I did. And I got off of it in a couple of weeks. It was incredible. I got off of Wellbutrin in a couple of weeks.
What do you attribute to that?
It could have been because somebody said, if you do this other thing, you can get off this other thing. I don't know. But I think the ketamine reached a part of my brain that nothing else could reach. And it reprogrammed my brain. That's what it felt like. It's like, it's getting a new script. It's getting a new way of behaving. But the thing that I didn't get from them, they gave me the ketamine, fine. It was safe. They kept checking my blood pressure every 40 minutes, and I felt totally safe there. But no one talked to me about anything. It was, okay, bye. get a ride home because you can't drive, but have fun with that. And so I got help from you and my therapist and a lot of journaling. But if I was not that mindful or that attuned, I would have just thought, okay, well, that was good. But I think a lot of people just go and get the treatment and don't really do the work that is necessary to really shift. And I think it's kind of, it's unfortunate because that medicine is powerful, but they're not using it right.
Well, that's sort of I was telling a friend that talking about these psychedelics or these medicines and, emphasizing the active part of using them is a little bit like defining sex by the orgasm.
Mm-hmm. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, like I was talking to my friend who's been to Soltara twice now, and he was saying, it's almost like you have to experience it the first time, and then you realize that actually ceremony and working with ayahuasca actively is about 25% of the process. Like everything else is preparation and integration, but it's really difficult to explain that to somebody who is used to the Western model where it's like, no, you just take the pill.
Yeah, just take the pill, put the nasal spray up your nose, and zone out for a couple of hours, you'll be good. Yeah, and it's just missing. And I think people could get a lot more healing than they are with that paradigm. But for some reason, that's what the FDA approved. And well, the expensive part is the therapy. The spray is very inexpensive, right?
So tell me what that shift did for you. Like when the light bulb went on of the role that integration could play and setting up a different context for using ketamine, how did that change things?
It just allowed me to create a new path for myself without the Wellbutrin and now without the ketamine.
Yeah. And so tell me about getting off the ketamine.
I was scared to death to get off the ketamine. And it bummed me out because I'm like, okay, now I'm off the Wellbutrin, but now I feel like I can't get off the ketamine. So this is not good. But I just exchanged one thing for next. And I had to get off the ketamine as part of the Dieta, which is the list, kind of a long list of restrictions that get stricter and stricter as you get closer to the retreat, right? So you wanted us off, and you're stricter than Soltara is. Yeah. Soltara would, I think they said maybe 3 days. And you're like, nope, it needs to be a month. I'm like, what? Because I felt like the ketamine was what was keeping me from nosediving into depression again. I was like, okay, well, shoot. But I trusted you and I had a session with you, and I have not felt one bit depressed at all, even off the ketamine. So I'm super grateful. I don't exactly know what happened, but I feel relaxed. I feel at ease. I feel I played a couple gigs this weekend. I felt super connected to the music, just so grateful, like practically in tears, playing music with other human beings. And that occasionally does happen to me, but usually like at a mountaintop kind of peak experience. But this was just like regular old gigs, and I felt so deeply connected and just so grateful. So I don't know what you're doing to me. I don't know what the medicine is doing, but it is working.
Well, you did say that. I mean, we did a few sessions. You also did some integration with your therapist, and you also did a lot of journaling. And so, what about that shifted you so that ketamine now sort of orbited you in a different way?
I guess I don't know, but what I'm noticing is that when I decided to do this ceremony back in July, I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to do this. I need something to shift, and this is going to shift me. And I was open to being shifted. I think that was a huge part of it. And the ceremony, well, when you set me up, and when I said, okay, I'm doing this, you said, okay, your ceremony has already started. as of this moment, it has started. And so I don't exactly even know what that means yet, but I'm just open to being shifted because I'm how old am I? 56, I think. And I'm just tired of hanging on to stuff that's been hanging on for a long time. I'm ready for things to shift. I'm ready for my life to kind of blossom and open the way I know that it can. And these medicines and the work that I'm doing, and it's fucking hard work. It's no barrel of laughs, I'm telling you. I'm happy, but it's been some really tough things that have come up.
Can you talk about the process of the dieta? It means diet, but it's more of a protocol because it's also behavioral, increasing technology, and just protecting not just your body and readying your body, but also readying your mind, doing less strenuous activities, not watching horror films, and you're just trying to holistically move away from intense stimulation so that you can kind of get to a closer baseline in a sense to meet the medicine. And so, yeah, can you talk a little bit about the restrictions and some of the highlights of what has affected you and what's kind of stood out to you in your process of giving things up?
Yeah. I made a spreadsheet. There's so many things, and you have to give them up at different times. I'm like, I need a spreadsheet. Give me a chart.
Wow.
I'm very good at following directions if I just know what I'm supposed to do. So thank you for being clear. But yeah, so the hardest, okay, couple of really hard ones for me. The phone, and I've weaned myself off a little bit at a time for weeks now, even before the month before. But now I'm like almost completely off of it.
How's it feel?
Great. I don't know if I'm going to pick it up ever again, honestly. And it's hard because right now we're in the middle of elections coming up, and we won't have our phones during the retreat at all while the election is occurring. Oh my God. I just hope there's a country to come back to, but it's great because there's nothing I can do about it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I've stepped away from it. And I used to listen to podcasts or YouTube videos or books on tape or something every minute of the day. I never had my mind just cleared. So what I did is I took out contexts of when I could listen to my things. So first I said, okay, you can't listen to podcasts when you're outside feeding the animals. So I listened to the birds instead. That was okay. And then eventually I said, okay, you can't listen to the radio or the podcast in the car. Oh, that about killed me. I thought I was going to die. I could not believe how long those trips took me to get to work. Oh my God. I was like falling asleep. And now I'm like, oh, this is so nice. I feel so calm and peaceful. So it's transformative. And I haven't even gone to the retreat yet. So it's kind of an amazing experience.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a mini ceremony for you. And that's the whole thing. Like, I really think about those Chinese myths from back in the day where you have the old wise, like martial arts teacher or whatever. And it's like, if you hike up the huge mountain and ask to be his student, he'll turn you down. And so it's only the students who will hike the mountains 3 times and get those first 2 rejections, And so usually there is a filter. You have to have a filter. You can't take everyone. You can only take serious students only. And I feel like these medicines used in these indigenous ways is the paradigm for that. Like, these plants will only work with you if you're serious and have a certain level of discipline, because it takes a certain level of a disciplined mind that it's really safe.
Have you had a lot of people that you tell them what the dieta is and they're like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that? Or will you let me come if I won't do all those things? And what do you say? Like, how do you do that as a leader? What do you say?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy. If you don't want to do that, then you don't want to do, I mean, we live in a society where we want the quick fix, we want the easy way. And you know what? Like, everyone wants the Ozempic.
Yeah.
And eat your vegetables and exercise, Yeah, exactly. And so, but it's for those people, it's for people who really want to heal. And it doesn't, just like any teacher that wants serious students, you don't want Band-Aid. But you want people who are willing to do the work. That is what is required to actually heal.
And you're doing the work too. You're on the same diet, no? Or even a more strict one?
Yeah, I'm not on a more strict one at the moment.
Okay.
But my diet will change in Peru and I'll drop quite a few pounds. So, afterwards, that first see me on our integration Zoom sessions and I'll be shrinking. But you gain the weight back pretty quickly. But I'm going to be doing this for like a year. And when you're in isolation too, you're drinking more often. And so you don't eat dinner on nights that you drink because you need to drink on an empty stomach.
You're talking about drinking ayahuasca, just so everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. And so you are not eating as much, and you're also not eating foods that make you gain weight.
That taste any good. So there's no salt, no sugar, no red meat, no dairy, no caffeine, no alcohol, no cannabis, no medicine at all, like Western medicine. No salt. Did I say salt? No sparkling water. No spices. No oil.
No citrus.
No citrus. Oh God, that about killed me.
I mean,
it's pretty rough.
Yeah, in many ways, we're being asked, you're eating what the ancestors ate.
Yeah.
Pretty soon after they put out fire and started cooking their food.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah, somebody said, well, at least you get to cook food. At least they're not making you eat raw. That could be worse. And the maestros, are they also doing the same dieta? The people serving the ayahuasca?
It's interesting, the path. So when you pour ayahuasca, you don't pour until you've been training for like 10 years.
Really?
And then it ends with the year-long initiation that I'm about to do.
Okay.
But I think you don't really start serving on your, like after that year, you're kind of apprenticing and you're kind of a backup dancer to your teacher in the ceremonies. You start working in the space and figuring things out. But you really need to be in training for about 20 years before you're ready to.
Wow.
I'm the person who's running the ceremony. I'm serving the ayahuasca. I'm ultimately responsible for everything that happens in this space. So it's not like, oh, I heard about ketamine last year. I went to a ketamine thing. Now I'm like, doing ketamine sessions for people.
Yeah. That happens all the time.
Yeah. No, it's really, really deep work by people who have really been devoted to this for a long time. And so, those first 10 years are grueling, and they're dieting all the time. They obviously take breaks. Like when they are on diet, they do have to be quite strict. But when they're not on diet and they're doing ceremonies for other people, they don't have to be as strict because they're already super cleaned out.
Right.
And again, they have built this relationship and just have this, like, just such an unbelievably impressive relationship with these plants that like, they don't do this, but they could, where they could have like a piece of cake or some ice cream before ceremony because they know how to work with the energy.
Oh, okay. If I did that, it would mess everything up.
Yeah, no, we can't do that. But
right.
And so it's like that whole, anytime you see an expert, it's like kids don't do this at home. Well, when you start, you're kids. And they're not, so they can do that, right?
Okay, got it.
Right? But still, when they're in a process with a plant, they do still have to follow the same rules. So, these healers live lives of celibacy. They live lives of, they live a salt-free, sugar-free life for the most part. And it doesn't mean you won't see them drinking a, soda or something every once in a while, but it's not when they're in that process.
Right. They just probably have a much cleaner life in general. I'm curious, what is the hardest thing for you to give up? And you're going to be doing it for a year. Oh, Lordy. What
Well,
is the one thing that's the hardest for you?
so what's interesting is so far, the hardest thing is moving to Oaxaca, Mexico. I discovered that it has the best cacao I've ever had in my life. So
Oh.
giving that up has so far been the most brutal thing. But the thing that I'm really giving up, I mean, it's interesting that, the indigenous or the Shipibo, well, all indigenous cultures in the Americas really have a reverence for tobacco. And
Mhm.
I've dieted tobacco. It's not the same tobacco that we have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I've been an on and off smoker for quite some
Mm-hmm.
time, and I know that the
Mm-hmm.
spirit of tobacco is like very, very strong in
Mm-hmm.
me, but I haven't had it under control since my mother died.
Mm-hmm.
And so for this dieta, for this time, like this is when I'm quitting. Like I'm not gonna like, freak out on everybody. At the retreat, I'll still be using mapacho. But even when I go to the jungle in Peru in isolation, I'm gonna be totally giving up tobacco, even in the plant medicine kind of space. Like
Oh,
I'm not gonna be
wow.
mapacho. And really getting in right relation with that plant. It's a bit
Mm.
like it's strange. It's different than marijuana because I gave up. I can't believe I gave up marijuana. Holy shit, that was an
Hard.
interesting process, but I did it.
Mm.
But tobacco's been it's been different for me.
Mm.
I've quit for years and years at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I started smoking again when I met my birth mother.
Ah.
And then after 9 months, I was like, okay, I'm going to let myself have this for 9 months. And then I
Mm.
quit and it was fine. So I quit for maybe like 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom died.
Yeah.
And I started smoking because
Mm.
I was traveling and I was like, oh my God, this would be great. I need this.
Mm-hmm.
And I quit for a couple weeks. So it's not the nicotine, like I'm fun, like the withdrawals aren't
Okay.
fun, but I can like,
Mm.
but something else is going on.
Ah,
And after 2 weeks,
fascinating.
yeah, I was like, wow, things got real dark. And I was like, I don't think this is like, okay, I think I need some like support to do this.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, well, when I go to Peru and I'm in isolation and I have the support of these other medicines that can
Okay.
detox you very easily, and I've got the shamans there that can fix my alignment with
Okay.
tobacco and heal whatever problem the tobacco is so clearly solving for
Okay.
me.
Okay.
That's going to be where I just kind of really deal with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to leave our retreat in Costa Rica and go to Peru directly.
We'll be in isolation for 2 weeks, and then we're going to stay a couple extra days to hang out with them.
Okay.
It's such a trip too, because I mean, you're going to meet these people and they come in and they've got their shit. And I've been to like the mall with my shaman. Like,
Oh,
look, I'll focus. Like, I needed some stuff. And he's like, yeah, I'll go with you. And
okay.
like, it was
Wow.
just funny walking through I mean, talk about like a context shift, right?
Well, it's like seeing your teacher at the grocery store,
Yeah,
like
totally.
when you're a little kid. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was just, I don't know, that was so funny to me. Um, but yeah, so we're going to be staying a little longer, and I'm going to see what this initiation is all about, because I mean, as you know, um, the plants already start working on you. Like, you haven't
Yeah.
actually sat in a maloca and drank ayahuasca, but like
Mm-hmm.
the energy is around you, the consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
things
Mm-hmm.
are coming to you.
Yeah.
And so this is true for dieta as well. Uh,
Okay.
so dieta is both the diet that you do to prepare for an ayahuasca retreat, but it is also a separate process of initiation with additional plants. They're called master plants or teacher plants.
Mm.
And
Wow. Wow.
yeah, and they call them like, maestro plants. So that
Okay.
translates to teacher, but also
Oh,
is
okay.
where our word master comes from.
Yeah.
And so these plants have also their own consciousness, but they're also like, on the ayahuasca team.
Okay.
They're
stakeholders for ayahuasca. Wow, fascinating. So while you're leading our retreat, you're kind of like me right now, getting ready to your own retreat.
That's right.
And it sounds like an intense initiation, which will start off a whole year's worth of a dieta for you.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
That's intense. That's intense.
Yeah. Oof. And it's great because, most people do this process again to pour ayahuasca at the end of the process. And that's not really my intention.
Why are you doing all this?
I just got the call. For some reason, the first time I ever heard about it, I just wanted to do it. I was like, that's just so cool. And
you heard about this dieta, right? Was that part of the deal, or you found out about that later?
Well, I heard about it like at an ayahuasca retreat.
Okay.
Like, oh, what's that? Like, what do you do? Wait, what do you do? What else do you have to give up? That's crazy. And then I did a dieta and it was really powerful. It found my birth mother. And then at some point I heard, I learned a little bit more about so how do these people do this? Like what college do they get? Like what are they doing? So I learned a little bit about that where it's like, you do these things called diets where you work with a plant and they give you teachings and then you just keep doing that and you do them for longer and longer periods of time. And it's not just building a relationship with the plants, but also building a relationship with a particular healer. Because it's weird. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think of it a little bit as like, if you needed something from someone, but they're not your friend, they're somebody else's friend.
Oh, okay.
So so that friend's just like, okay, yeah, I'll go vouch for you. And
okay.
They're really busy, but if I talk to them, they'll hook it up,
Okay.
And that's kind of the role that the healers play. They have that
for you.
Yeah, and the plants look fondly upon them and are just like, anyone you want me to help out, I'll help them out. But, if you're just a person on the street, they're just like, what do you want from me? Why am I supposed to be? So that's just, that's not obviously exactly how it works, but that's kind of the way I think about it.
Interesting.
So they're the people who hold that and they're vouching for you. So like co-signing. And so if you break the diet, if you mess up, it hurts them. Break the diet.
Your reputation, they're kind of putting their own reputation on the line by co-signing for you. So if you mess that up, it's like, oh.
Right, but it's energetic. And so if you break the diet, they could get really sick, and in some cases they could die.
Ooh, wow.
So depending on the plan and how serious it is. And so again, it's hard to conceptualize in but it is how it works. And so not only do you have to build relationships with the plants, but you also have to build a relationship with a healer who's like, yes, you are ready for this long of a diet with this particular plant.
Okay.
And yes, I agree to hold that contract for you. Okay. Time, because I believe you will make good and honor the contract.
Okay.
So, you can't just meet someone and be like, hey, so could I do a 1-year diet?
Yeah.
They see you. It's like parents, they see like, yeah, you're ready. Okay. Here's the car keys,
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility on everybody's part to hold up your end of the deal and to like see somebody's potential and really know somebody. They don't just say yes to everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah. And, these, I've been working with these healers for maybe 3 years. And I've only done one diet with them, but they knew that I had a history of other diets. They saw how strong those diets were in the space or like whatever it is that they're able to do.
Okay.
Things that they're able to do. And so they held a diet for me that ended up taking about 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
And so when I asked them, hey, can I do a year diet? See.
Oh, okay.
yeah, we believe you can do it on your diet.
Okay.
And so,
Whew.
but yeah,
Oh.
it's all relational, which is
Mm-hmm.
the exact opposite of how our culture works.
Yeah, it's not transactional or do this for me, or it's building trust over time. Yeah, it's
And building
way
trust in
too.
yourself too, because I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't do this if I didn't believe I could do this.
Sure, sure,
Yeah, I mean, we're coaches, you don't set people up to fail.
sure. Well, that makes
So
sense. I admire you. I'm like counting the days, how many more days I have to do this no salt thing.
you had also mentioned, so you had talked about in the, in the preparation process for you that you are, like you had mentioned like the phone and ketamine as being
Hmm.
part of the process. Like what other sort of big, like, or mini ceremonies have you had
Oh.
because of this diet
Well,
process?
should we talk about the joy one?
Please.
Ah, okay. So, okay. So, Mee Ok said, I have something to tell you, but you have to give me permission to share it. I'm like, oh, great. What now?
Yeah, I'm not going to jump out of a dark alley and, raid your soul.
Yeah, right. So I had to give permission. I'm like, yes, I'm in. I'm doing it. I'm doing this thing. I might as well do all of the thing. That's my attitude about it. Like, give it to me all. I don't want to do it half-assed. I'll do the whole thing. And she said, the plants think it would be a really good idea if you gave up Joey as part of your dieta. And I don't know if any of you have listened to this podcast or listened to me talking about Joey. I mean, he's the whole reason I do all of this work. I'm super enmeshed with him, it turns out, and also just super. I just adore him and want the best for him. And when she told me that, I about threw up. I was like, "What?" And about 10 seconds later, I'm like, "See that reaction of needing to throw up because of what's been asked of you? That's why you need to do this." And I don't know if it was the ketamine or just the ceremony had prepared me for that moment. Because I could have said, fuck off, Mee Ok. That is ridiculous. What are you doing to me? That's too hard.
Not my real facilitator.
Yes, it could have gone pretty bad. You were probably ready to shield your face because you knew how hard this would have been for me. And I said, yes, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. If that's what's being asked of me, I'll do it.
I want to interrupt you real quick
Yeah,
because
sure.
at first you were like, I need to think about it.
Oh, did I say that? Uh-huh.
Yeah. But then you went through a process
Uh-huh.
because you checked in with other people in your life.
Oh,
And
and they all said, yeah, you need to do that.
so in my mind, I'm wondering if they were just like, fuck yeah, Mee Ok. Oh.
Yeah, they're your hugest cheerleader. Like, yes, Beth is so, and I was so wound up, and I didn't even realize it until after I had quit Joey. And don't worry, anyone, I'm coming back to him, so don't worry.
Yeah. So how did that process unfold?
Yeah, I wanted to talk to Joey and tell him I didn't want to just ghost him or, do that like that. I wanted it to be pure. And so he knew my intentions. And I was concerned because adoptees, abandonment, that is kind of a thing. And I didn't want him to think that I was leaving him or abandoning him in any way. So I told him, I told him about the sparkling water. I said, Joey, you know how much I love sparkling water, right? And you know that I'm giving it up for this because I'd already complained to him about that. But that I'm doing it because they say it's important to let go of certain things so I can be more clear and more available for when I go to this retreat. Well, they've asked me now to give up you. And my dear son was the most beautiful soul in that moment. He's like, Mom, oh, I'm going to cry. He's like, Mom, I respect what you're doing. And I see what you're doing. I see how hard you're working. And I see how important this is to you. And I'll be fine. I'll be okay. I kind of wanted him to be a little bit of a wreck, but he was okay. And he's like, no, Mom, I get it. He also said, I can't believe I'm talking to my mom about doing psychedelics, but that's a whole different thing. But he said, Mom, I got you and you need to take this time. I think it'll be good for you. It'll be good for me too. And he even said, take as much time as you need. If you need more time afterwards,
Wow.
I'll be here and just take whatever time you need, Mom. like, oh my God. And I was crying and crying and crying, but
Mm.
we ended it such a beautiful way, knowing that it was temporary and that it was a space that was created so we could be better together. And he totally got it. He totally understood what was happening.
Well, and the way it was done, though, was with such care because it's not like, oh, I'm gone, you can't reach me. There was a plan in place. He had support. There was just a buffer,
Mm-hmm.
or, or a filter where he could contact your wife, he could contact his therapist, and
Mm-hmm.
it was something where you were needed, they could do that, but it was just not the direct line
Mm-hmm.
contact temporarily.
Yeah. And he and my wife have chatted several times. She's taken him out. And I'm so grateful because when it's the three of us, guess who's instigating everything? Me, always. And Jan just kind of comes along for the ride. But now, guess what? The two of them, they're talking to each other, which is beautiful. And if that's the only thing that happens out of this, that's beautiful in its own. But I anticipate, I mean, I've experienced so much healing just in that piece of it. Oh my God, I didn't realize how anxious I was about him all the time. And as soon as I was able to put him aside, knowing that he was taken care of and knowing that we cut it off nice and clean with loving intention, and he received that so beautifully. It's like a football field size empty space in my head now, where it was so filled with worry, anxiety, trying to control, trying to do the right thing, trying to be the perfect mom, blah, 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 all the time. So I now that I realize I can have this much peace, now the trick is going to be keeping this much peace when I come back.
Yeah, and that's so much again of the integration.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot like physical therapy where if you have a bone that didn't heal right,
Mm-hmm.
you go into surgery and you re-break it and they put it back where it's supposed to. You still have to do the work, the outpatient work afterwards to make sure all
Yeah.
the muscles around it heal properly, to keep it stable, to keep it now because it's
Mm-hmm.
going to want to go back to.
Yes, the natural tendency will be just to go back and do it like I used to do. So I'm aware of that, and I'm enjoying this piece that I have. I'm kind of trying to memorize it and go, okay, we want to keep this way, but with Joey back in my life. So I'm hoping that whatever I receive at the retreat from the plants and from the experience will help guide me. And I know that the integration sessions will help me. And I'm going into this hoping and wanting to learn. So I anticipate I anticipate I won't be perfect at it, but I anticipate it will be much better, and he and I can build a better relationship of two adults when I get back, instead of an anxious mom trying to save her kid all the time.
Yeah, and also, with the space that has been created for you,
Mm.
I'm sure there's been a space created for him on the other side, and part of that space is
Mm-hmm.
with Jan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, there's a me here. Shit. There's a me. There's a me.
Mhm.
Ooh. Mm.
Yeah.
That is something I have not spent a lot of time dealing with. I suppose when the ketamine started is when that kind of began. But much of my life has been around mothering or taking care of other people, teaching, giving of myself, and without much regard for healing myself. So this is the assignment, I guess, for this retreat.
Yeah, because ultimately, the idea would be that there's a part of you that has the abandonment because you
Oh,
abandoned yourself.
yes. Yeah. My own attachment issues and my own. There's something about the reason Joey and I were smushed together in this lifetime. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if I'll never know, but he and I resonate so deeply with that. Even though I was not adopted, I was not literally abandoned, but there was a lot of neglect, a lot of not being understood, not being seen, that I totally get with Joey. And I always tell other parents the best thing you can do is go do your own work. So, okay, I'm doing I got the assignment. I'm going to do my own work. I'm going to do it. And I do hope that a nice byproduct of it will be that Joey will be helped as well.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any updates on him that you're able to share or?
I don't think he'd mind me sharing that he went and voted. That's huge.
Wow. Great.
That's a huge, huge accomplishment. Because first of all, his generation is completely disenfranchised and feels disillusioned by the whole situation. And like, why does any of it matter? So, and he went to one of the early voting, like got on his bicycle or in a car, I don't know what, went to a place and did the whole thing, researched it. That's huge. Like, I don't even know if anyone understands how huge that is for him. And I was so proud of him. And he was so excited. And he called Jan, told her. And so, if that's one indicator of how well he's doing, I'm a little sad that he's doing better without me. So, that's something I'm going to have to work on.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Because if he feels better, and if this is what it took for him to feel better, it's okay.
Well, I mean, he's not without you, though.
True.
He's doing better when you're focused on your healing.
Yes. And he knows I'm here and that I'm going to be here. It's just temporary, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it has opened up space for him to explore his own healing. I think when we give them an example, like these young adults or teens or even little kids, you show them that we can still work on ourselves. And then they go, oh, you can keep improving even when you're 56 years old. Okay. Well, then I guess I can keep working on my stuff too. It's implicit or unconscious, but I think it helps people when you are improving, they will be inspired to do in their own way, maybe a different path.
Yeah. I mean, children model their parents or the people around them. It's just how it works.
Yeah, that mirroring. Like if you want to improve as a musician, you go play with better musicians, right? And you just automatically just reach further when you're with people that are working harder. Or if you want to eat better, you go hang out with your friends that are eating healthier, right? It's like that. We just naturally become more like the people we're around.
You know, we're kind of pack animals. And yeah, we're tribal in a sense, and we have our own spirits, and we need to have authenticity and be our authentic selves, but we also really need to belong. And so, excuse me, so much of that is finding the people and the animals and the vibes that our authentic self sort of belongs to and spiritually, energetically, so that we don't have to sacrifice so much of who we are in order to belong.
That makes sense. You told me that as my energy shifts, I will draw different types of people toward me. Is that kind of along the same lines what you're talking about right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like this Mobius strip, right? Where the more people pleasing you are, the less of you is seen. So the attachments are always to this mask. People in your life, you know, your sense of belonging is that your mask belongs, you know, and vibes with certain people. And when you're yourself, you save yourself a lot of time because if you aren't really into who you are, you know that pretty quick and you can move on. And it's not that they're bad or you're whatever. It's just that it's just not a match. You're not on the same frequency and cool. But, you know, when you adapt, pretend you're on a frequency that you're not, then, yeah. So it's, you know, so it's this balance of authenticity because you always are you know, you can't just, otherwise you'd just be like a narcissist, right? You would just be like the me show all the time. So it's about that. It's really about relationality and reciprocity. So much of that is going to be practiced. I mean, that's another thing about like, you know, being the leader or whatever. Like in a way, I kind of see myself as like the coordinator
Mm-hmm.
retreat who coordinated in a way based on a vision that I
Mm-hmm.
had.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm ultimately, responsible. But at the same time, it's it's about like I'm going to be learning so much.
Mm-hmm.
I learn from everybody else's process. I get a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more of a bird's eye view. I mean, that's sort of,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of get more trends. Like if when you see different clients and, certain
Mm-hmm.
themes and patterns will come up and you're
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a doctor, you might be like, man, I don't know why I'm so sick. And then you go and see the doctor and they're like, oh yeah, that's going around.
Right. They've seen
So
it. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a little bit, you're not on the ground. You're like a little bit, up on the hill.
Ah,
So you kind of see a little bit more of the field
yeah, yeah.
goes through your personal experience. Um, and so, yeah, so it's been interesting to kind of get a more contextual look
Interesting.
at things. But what have you thought about the preparation process in general? Just because we've had 2 sessions now where
Uh-huh.
Tanya and I have hopped on and been like,
Mm-hmm.
hey guys, this is a dieta and this is what we're
Yeah.
doing. And this is
Uh-huh.
why we're asking you to do all this hard stuff. And then we've also, we just did a session preparing you for your first ceremony.
Yeah. No, it's been great because it is way outside of most of our comfort zones, and you all are being very clear. You're not beating around the bush about what you're asking us to do. It's very clear, which I appreciate, and creating a community already before we even get there, spending time with us. I don't think that normally happens with Soltara, right? They just show up and then woof, you're with a bunch of people. So, and we all have a WhatsApp group too. You're not in it, but you know about it, I think. But
Yeah, you guys need
we're
your
all
own.
like, I wish I had salt. And I keep losing weight, stuff like that. And yeah, so it's really, I feel really, really lucky to be doing this. And the way, I mean, this is all I know, but this is kind of amazing the way you're putting this together. And I'm so appreciative. I wonder if God, I hope you will eventually do this for adoptees. Do you see that happening? Just a retreat just for adoptees?
You know, I think that that would be really beautiful. There are certain retreats that I would love to see happen for different groups of people.
Or all BIPOC or all queer or all.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. But again, you need the numbers.
Yeah.
Like this is not an inexpensive thing, and it is
Yeah.
always like a financial risk to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because people, leave their lives and they have to be paid and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
for the next retreat, one of the things is I try to get some like secured signups
Okay.
for committing kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, and I'm going to see what the group size feels like too,
Mhm.
because Soltara has 2 locations. One of them has less beds, so it'd be less people that we
Mhm.
would need to bring
Mhm.
and fill up. Tanya and I are going to feel out the difference
Mm.
between a more intimate group. This time we have 4
Mm.
coming,
14, yeah.
and that feels good, but at the location that we're at, we had wanted 19,
Okay.
when we moved all the numbers around and stuff. But we could have potentially done 20. I mean, one of the issues for this retreat was that the way that we're holding the container is that it just doesn't make sense for couples or family members to come together.
Yeah.
Friends could, because their energy isn't merged and their lives aren't intertwined
Mhm.
in that root chakra way.
Yes.
Yeah, the boundary is different.
Yeah, like you won't even let me journal to Jan. But imagine if I went with Jan, my mind would be half the time with her and making sure she's okay and how's your experience been? It would be impossible for me to focus on myself if I brought her with me or Joey. God, forget it. No way.
Yeah. So it's not to say that you should never go to an ayahuasca retreat with a family member. I've seen people do really beautiful relational
Mhm.
healing. So, I mean, that might be a retreat that I offer in the
Yeah,
future, like a couples retreat. I mean, probably not a couples, but like a family, family member.
intentionally. Mhm.
Yeah. Because, I mean, for example, I was at an ayahuasca retreat where, a family member was lost to suicide and
Mm.
a parent and their child came
Mm.
to,
Mm.
to process the loss of that
Oh.
child and sibling
Mm.
as a family. And so I don't want to say that that's like the wrong way to do it. It's just that the
for
way
this one,
that, for the vision of this retreat and thinking of it in terms of really going deep and also that's sort of the path that the Shipibo have. I mean, like Tanya and I aren't going to be able, we're not allowed to make like eye contact, with each other when we go to Peru. I mean, there will be times because, if I can't communicate adequately in Spanish, we'll need to pull her out of hibernation. But, we're not going to be socializing. We're not going to be like, we are going to be as much in our own energetic and psychic space as possible. So you have silent meals, you're not looking at each other. You're in silence. It's sort of like it's kind of like a mixture of a silent meditation retreat and Ayurveda detox and then ayahuasca. That's a lot.
That is a lot. And I love that you're not asking us to do anything that you aren't doing and more.
That's a big difference with Western medicine. Because I think about, for example, cancer and chemo. And when you look at the numbers and when they send out surveys, like 93% of doctors would never go on chemo or put their family member on chemo.
Really? Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I'm like, so how is that not like snake oil sales? So, so that's the thing. And that's one reason that I feel like I've been able to go as far with the Shipibo as possible, because I'm doing, a year-long diet. They've done year-long diets. Some of them have done 18 months.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, and pretty much all of them have brought themselves back from the dead as well. It's like my story in the West is kind of like, wow, she couldn't walk and blah. And then it's just like, yeah, that's like every shaman. What's the big deal?
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So in a way, that's kind of like the shaman's journey or whatever, or can be. Yeah. And so when they're asking me to do these hard things, I know that they've done them to like the nth level. Yes. And when I'm talking with them, they're able to talk to me through experience and with compassion, because they're like, man, I remember just starting out and just like, yeah, it was hard. It was hard to give up salt. Like, because by this time it's like you do get used to things. Like we adapt. Like we're still here as a species because we adapt, good and bad. We adapt.
Yes.
And so, it's just like, oh, I'm going on a diet again. I'm giving up these things again. But also at this point, you're a little bit more skilled. So you're not like, oh God, what am I going to eat? You got
the way I am, like, what? Yeah, but even I'm getting kind of used to it. The salt has been really hard, but I can imagine the more you do these things, you get used to it and you realize you're not going to die because you don't have salt, and things do start tasting different. And it's such beautiful lived experience. We're not studying books to get this knowledge. You're doing things, embodying things, and learning from others who have also embodied these things. That's really beautiful. And it's so not how we usually do things.
Well, and as an adoptee, it's really special because I get to be part of a lineage.
I never thought of that.
Yeah. And it's not like, it's not like I'm some like Shipibo person or anything, but these rituals and the fact that they stretch back into like time
thousands and thousands of years. That is very special. They're kind of letting you into their family in a way, right? Allowing you to learn these secrets or methods.
They're not secrets, but it is protected knowledge that is shared with people who can understand it. It's not like you sit down with a 5-year-old and, turn on the 10 o'clock news and be like, here's the world, kid.
Yeah.
Do it. Have fun. Yeah. So you meet people where they are. And with these healers, because you see things and you experience things and they're so magical. But they should be closely guarded. And at every turn, I'm like, yeah, this isn't knowledge for me to have. But I think they also work with they also really, they practice what we preach, what we all preach is trust the plants. And so it's kind of like I heard, I mean, I don't have kids and don't plan on having them, but I've heard that like if the kid is old enough to ask the question, they're old enough to get an answer. It doesn't mean, like I said, you need to turn
Full
off.
on it.
Yeah.
Some
But
sort of answer.
give them some sort of answer that's like appropriate to where they are. And so in a similar way, I feel like in the ceremonies, the plants will show you things because the plants know what you're ready for.
I think that's why I'm not afraid. Some people are like, aren't you afraid? Like, what if something happens? And I feel like, no, from my experience with ketamine and psilocybin and just working with you, I feel like I won't be asked to do something that I am not ready for.
Yeah.
I think my brain will filter it out, or the spirit, or whatever it is. I don't even know what it is. Will filter out and give me the things that I can handle. And I'll be well supported, kind of emotionally and physically at Soltara, and I'm ready. I'm like ready to go.
Yeah. And I mean, in our talk, we had talked a little bit about surrender. And so much on this path is about surrender. It's letting parts of the ego die. And they use the symbol or the metaphor of the snake shedding its skin.
Oh, yeah.
And I think about that because I'm like, that has to be uncomfortable. Like that has to be a process. And, the snake has to be intentional about it with the way it moves to be able to wiggle out of that thing. And, the path to surrender from fear, like right in the middle is trust.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you didn't grow up with a lot of trust, it doesn't come real naturally for a lot of people, right?
Well, it doesn't come natural for most of us. I mean, we live in a society, like you said, you don't even know if you'll have a country to go back to. Like we live in a context, in an unpredictable world that's kind of run by maniacs. And so it is really, really hard to trust life and to feel protected. And we are just so disembodied. And that is something that's really interesting about the plants is that there is this settling that you will be okay.
I feel like I'm trusting myself more.
It's amazing what happens when you spend more time with yourself.
Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah, it is. This has been an amazing experience and I haven't even gone yet. So I feel like I've already got my money's worth and I haven't even done the thing yet that I signed up to do. It's just been an incredible experience. I hope that we will sit down again and do a part 2 of this and about how it went for everyone, for both you and me, from our both perspectives. Your first time leading a retreat, my first time going, and all the things to be continued.
Yeah, when we're both on the other side of things and a little bit more settled. Yeah.
I wondered if you wanted to talk about the medicine circles at all in this or no.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as we mentioned, so much about this work, like at least 50% of this work is integration. And like, yeah, it's important to go to class, but like it's the homework, it's the you doing the work alone, toiling with yourself to make it stick, to find the way that you make it stick, to find your own process and have everything make sense for you and the way you can remember things and whatever, however it's kind of like when I went back to grad school. There's no book out there to say like, hey, adult person with like a totally unique situation, this is how you move everything around to somehow go to grad school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like, the medicine's the medicine, but you still have to go back and figure out your life. And there's no other, that just takes work. And so yeah, the medicine circles that we're doing, we've done, we've been building an adoptee medicine community, which has been really beautiful. Just different people who have been connecting to these different spaces, or even people who haven't had medicine, but are sort of drawn.
Yeah. Wanting to do something deeper or willing to explore. So
Yeah.
I can't even go to those. I just go and open up the room and say bye-bye. And you guys do magic in there.
Yeah.
So if any of you that are listening have, tried plant medicine, have had transformative experiences with plant medicine, or even breath work or therapy, like any sort of deep personal growth, and you just want to process it with other people who understand the adoption world, because most plant medicine spaces are not going to be filled with adoptees. So there is that special way that adoptees see things, and each person in the adoption constellation sees things. So
Yeah. I mean, it's really for people who are working on themselves.
yeah,
And
however that looks for them.
yeah, because we don't just come and share. It's a forward movement, productive. Even, sometimes sharing can be part of the healing.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be able to share in the space with other adoptees.
Mm-hmm.
But, the idea is that you come in a certain, from a certain place. And at the end, you leave a little bit further along the path.
Yeah. So you do coaching basically and guiding, not necessarily every single person that comes, but you take several people and we all learn from watching that process.
Yeah. And we also learn really how to be compassionate witnesses for
Mm.
other people
Mm-hmm.
and to stay in our bodies,
Mm-hmm. And off our phones.
to embrace triggers
Yeah.
and just watch ourselves, to observe ourselves, and to also give our hearts to others, or have our hearts open for others, and then hopefully to ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the
And I
goal.
should say, if adoptive parents are listening, I would love to pull together a group of adoptive parents who are willing to do this work together. That'd be amazing. So let me know if you're interested. We'll pull a group together. We just need ideally six people in a group, and then we'll go. So just let us know what y'all are looking for, what combination of people, and we'll pull it together for you.
Yeah, because one of the things that I think about often is that I was telling a friend today that there's kind of this double helix that I see,
Hmm.
where there's that truth, like these deep spiritual truths, that in the center of our heart, we're all the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we're all here to have a differentiated, diverse,
Mm-hmm.
embodied experience,
Mm-hmm.
and to practice compassion for other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that happens from the center of our hearts. What
Mm.
I find is that, however different story, or whatever different gender or race or background, that there are these things that ring true.
Mm.
You could watch a story about some, Nigerian person who grew up in a village and just feel like you get it, they get you, and even though
Mm.
your lives couldn't look any different, or your skin couldn't look any different.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I find that in the root of childism, which is a Black psychologist at Harvard coined it in the 60s. And the idea was that being a child is the most disenfranchising thing in the
Mhm.
world. And,
Mhm.
particularly in our culture. And then the further back in history, it just gets worse and worse and worse,
Yeah.
unless you're in a, indigenous community or something like that. But for the most part, what he claims, and which I think is really interesting, is that every form of bigotry
Mm.
is based from the initial paradigm of childism. Like,
Mm.
children aren't to be seen or heard. Sound familiar? Marginalized
Mm.
groups, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
when I look at adoptive parents, and one reason that I would hope to be able to begin to integrate the space, or that I'd be so happy to work with adoptive parents, is that when you're talking to a parent, it's kind of like when I think about old people. It's like when you're talking to a parent, you're also talking to a child. Like, you're also talking to someone who was a child.
Yes.
And it's the same thing when I think about old people.
Mhm.
If they're old enough, everybody's an orphan.
Yeah. Yeah, and what wounds do we as adoptive parents have in our childhood that I don't know, caused us to adopt or caused us to try to save somebody else or try to fix somebody else. What is that all about? And can we hold space for all of that while navigating raising our kids and whatever's
Exactly.
going on with our kids? It's deep. It's hard.
Yeah. And that's why the complexity is so important. You were that child and you are that parent. And so to be able to hold both and heal both, to me, that's where it's at. And again, it's through observation and experience. I've just seen, it's like what you were talking about with Joey. Healing is contagious.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you work on yourself, you can't help but heal others around you just by being a better you.
Yeah. Well, I feel so honored. I'm glad you finally replied to my email because when, I read your story in The Myth of Normal and like, hey, that's an adoptee, a translational adoptee. I've got to get her on. And I'm glad that we eventually connected because now look at what we're doing. And we are teaming up, collaborating for these big picture things happening in the adoption community. And I feel so grateful. And I feel like there's so much potential for healing in our community between Constellation members, amongst each branch of the Constellation. There's so much that can be done with plants and just with people that are willing to go deeper, just willing to talk about this stuff without throwing shit at each other or without, just to see each other as fellow human beings working on stuff together.
Yeah. And also to bring a deeper sense of complexity to the space too, because we talk about, adoptive parents like they're over here and adoptees like they're over here. Well, guess what? Sometimes they're the same person. A lot of adoptees adopt children. And so, and so I think that I just think there's so much to be shared that we don't know. And whenever I talk to different adoptees, I'm just like blown away by how different the stories are and recognizing my privilege because there are a lot of Korean adoptees. And so I do have options for a community in that respect that I'm like the top cast, right? If there is such a thing, right? In the adoption.
Yeah, you guys have the most intercountry adoptees, right?
Yeah. We've got the market share. We own, 1% of this company.
Look at you.
All right. Yeah, right. But yeah, I think, I really look forward to just seeing what happens and seeing how the medicine works with people and also for adoptees or for people in the adoption constellation, it is a very specific thing, but to get even deeper into how it connects with all humanity, because blood is blood, but there's so much more to connection and bonding and chosen family and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's very complex. Well, I'm very much looking forward to the retreat, and I'm looking forward to whatever is going to be thrown my way. I'm going to just try to think of them all as gifts, even if they're really hard. And I know that some of it's going to be hard. I just know that there's going to be some hard stuff, but I'm going to just be open and accepting, and we're going to just keep on going, and we'll see you on the other side, I guess.
Yeah, on the other side.
Is there anything else you want to say?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing this, and we'll catch you all in part 2. If you made it all the way through that extra long, extra special episode, thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something new or your curiosity was piqued about this plant medicine stuff. We wanted to remind you that December 22nd is our next medicine circle for adoptees. So if you're an adoptee who's experienced plant medicine or other deep healing, that is the next time to get in a group with Mee Ok to process and integrate what you've learned. Anyone is available to meet up with Mee Ok one-on-one. She's the coach, and you can find her contact information in the show notes. Her website is called holdingcompassionate.space, and I'll link that in the notes below. So you can get a hold of Mee Ok anytime, or maybe we'll see you on December 22nd for our next medicine circle. Stay in touch with Unraveling Adoption by finding our website, unravelingadoption.com. Join our mailing list there and get involved and engaged in all the activities and insights and information that we offer. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Stay safe.